Hello, sir.
What's going on, man?
Just here, living the dream with you.
How do I sound? You hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Good.
Yes, fantastic. Um, so I did a brief announcement, but you get to be the first guy that is going to live on in infamy after the fact.
Oh,
Um,
man.
yeah, so welcome. Um, we
Pleasure to be
will,
here.
yeah, good to have you. Um, hey, Ben, welcome. I'm gonna have to wave at everybody here as we're going here. Um, so I've done this with, of course, other contractors. That's a pretty easy fit. So you'll have to. I'm going to probably come off as fairly ignorant in your field as we go here, but I'm very interested to talk to, of course, you and other other professionals that we as remodelers or contractors work with regularly. And first off, I'm a huge fan of your work. Your work is pretty fantastic.
Thank
I've
you.
enjoyed following. I long before I knew I was enjoying it. Um, so I don't really know where to start. Probably the easiest place to start is kind of just your backstory and where how you got into doing what you do, and then the other thing I'd like to touch on is why why construction. You don't know how many WKP and Johnny and Nick, these guys, you work with them. How'd
Mhm.
you get into that? So fire away, get started.
Uh, all right. So, I'm a videographer, and I'll kind of just explain the process a little bit and just kind of
Perfect.
break it down. Um,
Yeah.
so, when you start to make a video, you really need to start with what message you want to communicate to your audience, and think about the type of people you're trying to reach out to. And that generally starts with a script. And that word sounds scary to people, script. It doesn't mean like a narrative script where you're rehearsing lines and all that. It's more of an
Mhm.
outline, or a plan. Look at it as a blueprint. And that's
Right.
called the pre-production phase. And that's a really important phase that people kind of want to just jump to shooting, but it's really important to kind of have that planning phase first. So once that's kind of underway, you have the message nailed down. Then it jumps to shooting. You get on site, boots on the ground. Um,
Hmm.
whatever it is, demo, framing going up, sheeting, whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and then that's production. And then we go to me taking all that footage, editing it together,
Hmm.
following that plan we made originally to, make sure we hit that message home. And that's called
Hmm.
post-production. So
Yeah.
as a videographer, I do all three of those phases. Um, so that's basically what I do. Um, and
Interesting.
how I
So
how
is
go ahead.
and sorry, I
That's,
broke up there and
yeah,
jumped
you
on you.
broke up
So
a
go
little bit.
ahead and finish your thought there, and then we can circle back around on my questions.
Okay. And as far as how I got into residential construction, Nick and I actually went to college together, and we didn't really start doing work together for a number of years after college.
Hmm.
He started NS Builders. I was working full time. I hadn't gone off on my own. And he's like, "Hey, can you do a video like this?" He sent me an example. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And
Hmm.
it kind of fell apart and didn't happen. A couple of years later, I started my own thing, and
Hmm.
I kind of restarted the question with him. And he's like, "Yeah, I thought you were too busy for me. Let's do this." And then
Hmm.
it's kind of snowballed since then. And
Yeah.
he's really been the reason why I've gotten so many clients in the industry. People reach out to him. Hey, I like your video. Who does it? He
Hmm.
throws my name out there. They check out my work, and then they message me, and that's kind of
Hmm.
how I've gotten into residential construction.
Yeah. That's cool. It's an interesting market to be in because I would assume that that's not like a target market for most videographers. It's not a huge market because most, if you really look at the cross section of residential construction owners, company owners, most of them, it's not a real high priority to put out, especially the kind of content, the quality content that you're putting out. But as evidenced by Nick, WKP, and Johnny, like it pays. It's a really, really good investment.
Yeah, and that's, go ahead.
So one of the questions I had written down that I wanted to ask you, is there a way to scale to that? The stuff you're putting out, and obviously, to put out the type of content you're putting out, you have to be paid well. That's not what you're hiring your nephew for, that kind of stuff. Some kid with a Canon that he likes, and you could go that way. But is there a way to scale from the guy, from me out there with my iPhone doing stories, which it is something to continue to maintain. Obviously, Johnny and Nick and these guys are still doing that. But is there a step between that level of production and the all in with a really high end video production and really the buy-in that Nick and Johnny are doing, really documenting the whole process start to finish? They are kind of the exception to most contractors. Most contractors don't want to be a trendsetter or I don't know what else would you call Nick and Johnny, but like they're kind of the forefront of the contracting world. They're leaders in the industry. Most
Right.
guys, that's not a goal for. They just want to use it for marketing, right? So
Right.
how is there a way to scale to that? Is there a kind of a cut down version of that, or should people just in their budgets just have, here's your big chunk item, get out there and do really high end production video stuff? It could be a really good way to go.
Yeah, so first of all, it's critical. If you're watching this, you have a smartphone, it's critical, especially you guys are in a very visual industry where you can really show what you're doing and, really see the progress as opposed to like working on a computer or something. So right off the bat, you should be doing Instagram stories as often and as physically possible as you can.
Mm-hmm.
The next step from there, I'd suggest, buying a drone. They're really, entry level prices are really approachable. And maybe kind of playing around with some, iMovie or whatever, and maybe getting a GoPro. You really have to get a respect for video production and what, high quality video production is for you to want to spend the money to do it. Because like you said, if you hire your nephew to do it, it's probably not going to be exactly what you're looking for. So there really is I really don't have an answer for you, but if you want to get past the Instagram stories, I think the most approachable thing to do is get a drone and a GoPro and kind of play around with some nonlinear editing software.
Yeah. That's actually something you said there is that really, it's really interesting because, sorry, a bunch of guys jumped in that I need to wave at here. Hey, there's Johnny right there. So that statement that getting an appreciation for what really high-end video production is, I'll see something, maybe not, I can't think of an exact instance of your work that I've seen, but, I see a really nice video put together by somebody and think, dude, I'm doing that. I'm going to put that together. And then what comes out at the other end of my creative process looks nothing like that.
Right.
And so that's where, like, wow, I actually personally have a pretty good interest in videography and that production stuff. I don't plan on making a career out of it, and because of that, I'm never going to get very good. But I have an interest in it, and even so, like, in a heartbeat, we'll spend a ton of money on a really good video edit. And it's at the end of the day, you end up with 3 to 5 minutes worth of quality content, but that's really all it takes. One of our videos for us personally with Redo Creations that has one of the biggest marketing tools we ever did was just that, invested in a video. And it's something that it's just about every client has seen on our website, and they mention it. It's well put together, and it's made a huge difference. Hey, Wade. Yo.
It's exactly that. It's an investment. There needs to be a mutual respect from the client towards video production, and I have great respect for what construction people do. So,
Mhm.
I approach it, I'm going to give you all I got, and you got to reciprocate to me. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No sweat.
But
So could you dig in a little bit into how you got into what you're doing? I mean, has that always been a passion for you,
uh,
or
video,
video production? Yeah.
yeah, I've been playing with cameras probably since I was 13 years old, so it's always been something that was there. It started with skateboard videos in high
Nice.
school, and then I went to college for it. I went to college for film production, and
Mhm.
got hired at a small ad agency in Worcester, and
Mhm.
doing video, and then went into my own thing.
Yeah.
So it's always been something that's I'm
Yeah.
interested in, and I wanted to, improve
Yeah.
my craft with.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it on your own now?
I started Puffin Media in 2014. I had a year hiatus in there.
Mm-hmm.
So on and off for the past 3-4 years.
Cool. It's awesome. Yeah. And like I said, like I've just been, before I knew it was your work, like I've always been like, I found out later, oh, this is another one that Doug put together. This is awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, obviously you've kind of hit, the golden goose with NS Builders, and then beyond, connections through him of just fantastic contractors and people that have a big following themselves. Johnny, you're awesome.
Can't please these people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he'll do it to you right live. You bet. No filter
That's
there.
something that's really, really unique to the construction industry is, where you stand with people. Everybody is very blunt and straightforward, which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So is that kind of the goal going forward for Puffin? Like, is it, construction related stuff, or do you have other clients that you work for?
I have a few other clients in, various industries that, I really don't think they want me to discuss. Mainly
Yeah.
in the tech side of things.
Yeah.
But primarily right now it's construction.
Yeah. That's interesting. And it does seem like it'd be a cool thing to be in, because the platforms are changing so much right now. The fact is, while, over the last 10 years, HGTV has been huge. I don't know. I could totally be wrong, but like I picture, NS Builders, and you name it, like what Matt Reisinger is doing with the Build Show, like
Yeah.
there's the next platform that comes along, or it could be, obviously Matt has something of a good thing going with YouTube at the moment. That could be the way of the future as far as, construction related entertainment.
No, I definitely agree.
And of course, a whole lot more educational than most of the HGTV
Yeah,
does at the moment.
absolutely. And they're, very detailed and, very in the weeds is what people want,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
HGTV stuff. There's some really good stuff, and then there's some, more contrived and kind of
Yeah.
lukewarm stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
the stuff the Build Show is doing is, inspirational, and it's really, I think it is the way of the future, whether it's YouTube or Netflix or Hulu. It's definitely away from, network television, and being more accessible to all builders from different regions and whatnot.
Yeah, I just would picture that would open up just a world of opportunity for people, especially people like you. You're in a really good position to move forward into that and start, developing a wider industry, or not industry, but wider company than just yourself. I mean, the possibilities are just about endless with where you could go with that.
Yeah, and
become
I'm
a pretty
looking,
good media.
yeah, I'm looking to, build, in the long-term plans. I
Mhm.
want a bigger team and I want to be able to do more and offer, I want my quality to go up and so forth. And I definitely think it'll grow with what people are doing right now.
Mhm. Yeah, seems pretty awesome. Um, so how about look at a couple more notes I had. Um, One thing I was actually thinking is if it works, we might not do the full hour. Like I said, this one is going to be up on YouTube, and I'm hoping to start cutting these down, um, cutting them down a bit. So I'm hoping to maybe go another 15 minutes or so, and uh, and call that good. But let's grab Johnny's question there.
How far? How
How
far?
far will you travel to work with somebody?
I'll drive.
He might be trying to get me to bring you up to the West Coast here.
I'll drive about an hour and a half. That's as far right now. I have actually gotten a lot of requests, Toronto, Canada, Chicago, Pennsylvania. If I could, I would, but right now it's got to be relatively the New England area, New York area.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about, do you need a solid fan base like NS Builders to do the high end videos?
I don't necessarily think so.
You just need deep pockets.
No, I mean, yeah, there's all ranges of production.
Hmm.
What Nick is doing, it improves what he's doing because he has a large following, obviously. But it's what you do with that video. You're gonna have to promote it. You're gonna have to put it places. You want to get it in front of the eyes you want to watch it, potential clients or what have you. So it really comes down to what you do with the video, and yeah, being willing to spend some money outside of production and promoting it.
Hmm.
Definitely think that's a part of it.
That right there is a really good question. Grab Johnny's question about
Yeah,
how much content you need to record to get a 1 minute clip. I have a small amount of appreciation for that, but
that's a lot. My first shoot with Johnny, it was about a 5 or 6 hour shoot, and I shot about 100 gigs footage, which is probably 3 hours ish, maybe 2.5 hours. And we probably could have used a little more for that 1 minute clip. But yeah, it takes a
that's
lot.
wild.
Yeah, it takes
That's
a lot.
wild. But to get to, is most of that like just repeated takes and Johnny just goofing off, or is there like?
No. I don't really, unless it's specific, like unless we plan to do a
Mhm.
script, we don't really repeat takes.
Mhm.
With Johnny, I kind of just follow him around, and let Johnny be
Yeah.
Johnny, and it's my job to make him come off the way he does to you in person.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's specific to Johnny. It depends on what what you want your message to be and how you want to be portrayed.
Mhm.
We can do the multiple takes and, script it out and that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm sure like a huge challenge for you must be dealing with the human element. It's one thing to come and shoot a finished product, or somebody's work, or a physical item, and put together something. But to get a person to be their natural self on camera has got to be a monumental task often.
it's a challenge, and it, obviously depends on the person and how outgoing they are, how comfortable they are in front of a camera. I
Yeah.
know people that are really great at public speaking, and then you put a camera on them and they can't put a sentence together. So the camera is a really unique thing, and when you think about it, it might seem like an easy thing, but when it's in your face, it's totally different. And
Yeah.
and it's partly on the person you're shooting to find their comfort zone in front of a camera, and it's my job to help them get there.
Yeah.
Look at
Huh. That's,
yeah.
I assume that's something you screamed at him repeatedly.
No, no, no. Johnny's a natural. He was really good.
Yeah, you would assume so.
And Nick's
like
really
I,
good.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So one thing Johnny just said right there about IG stories being great practice, I can attest to that, because like, to level with you, a year ago, you wouldn't have caught me dead doing this. This actually is not my comfort zone, interestingly enough. I have no problem, just talking to people. I'm pretty outgoing in that standpoint, but when it comes to getting in front of the camera, my phone is mostly full of, when I'm trying to put together video for a project we're doing or whatever, of just butchered takes that I've, just wussed out on. Yeah. And I just got to go back through and I'm deleting many, hours of video sometimes, just trying to get down to something that I'm okay with, because I'm just not comfortable, doing that.
Right.
But
you're
getting beyond it, because I see the value in this, and this of course is a different topic than produced video, but
it goes hand in hand.
I see the value in this. I know I've gained so much by doing this, and that really was kind of the whole point. Like, I just wanted to connect with other industry professionals and people like yourself. So I just had to get over it and do it.
Yeah.
Suck it up. Get started. Oh, okay. This is going to be a really, really good topic, because I'm going to have some follow-ups to Johnny's question here, about where you get your music and how you found his jam.
Primarily where I get music is audiojungle.net.
I'm writing this down right now. That's why I'm looking off in the distance.
They have, it's royalty-free music. You pay for a license based on what you're going to do with it. Licenses range from $15. Usually they're around $20, $25 for the better songs. But if you're going to put it on TV or something, the license costs a lot more. It costs like $60 or $80. And there's other sites. That's one I use. There's a lot of different ones. There's Pond 5 or something.
I've heard of that.
Killer Tracks is probably the most expensive, but they have the best music. There's a bunch of different ones. Just search royalty-free music.
So, what are you looking for? Yeah. You got a pretty good fan base on here, Doug. Yeah. So, what are you looking for in that kind of thing when you're setting a soundtrack to, something that's specifically for advertising, or that, like, what type of music are you looking for to kind of offset that?
First, you have to know kind of who you kind of really got to get a feel for the vibe your client's trying to put off. You kind of have to get in their brand a little bit. Is it more professional? Is it more laid back? Is it some combination between the two? And then from there, it's just time. It takes a lot of time. You can't just search, acoustic guitars for Johnny's music. It takes a long time to find. And when you go to search for some music, if someone's looking at this going to search for some music, you'll see what I mean. There's a lot of crap. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff, but it might not be the right stuff. So it's just, it boils down to time.
Yeah. That's so, having put together a bunch of little 1-minute clips that kind of show some odds and ends of our projects, I know what you're talking about. You could spend hours just looking for a song that would have and you can't even really look at necessarily the type of music you would always listen to. Like, most of the stuff I have, like, isn't just out of my playlist, right? Like, it's a lot of, like, pop type, upbeat, stuff that's gonna go good with a lot of fast cuts, because that's what you need in a shorter video is a whole bunch of fast cuts. And I'm telling you this like I have any idea, but generally that's the only way I get something that looks halfway coherent and shows what we're after is a lot of fast cuts and a little faster music.
There is one thing you can do if you really, if you're really into like a professional artist song. Like
Mm-hmm.
Johnny's song was a beat from God, Post Malone. And
Mm-hmm.
I told Johnny, I'll use it. You just have to be prepared that the label or whatever is going to tell you to take it down.
Mm-hmm.
So you can travel those waters if you want. You just have to be prepared to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that on YouTube just because the way it's set up. But
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, you could probably, and you
You get away
if
with
you
it.
don't
Yeah.
promote it, if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
it probably can handle it.
Yeah.
And something to tie back to, actually, Cucumber Brothers brought it up about saving time in post, and that's the phase nobody wants to focus on. Is if you really focus on your message and you plan a script, you write out a script, and it does, like I said, it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to have the ideas there. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's really where you're going to save time in production and post production, and that'll really bring the cost down if it's an hourly arrangement
Mm-hmm.
or what have you. It depends on who you're working with, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. These guys are doing all the heavy lifting for me. I love it. So hit these questions here. Get Ben's question there about if you had to make one video, what would it be? Just a company overview or something more specific?
I'd definitely go with the company overview. Who you are, what you do, why you're different. That's kind of like and where you are to some extent. But the three important, tent poles, if you will. I'm such and such builder. We build decks. Why we're different. Our building process for decks is unlike any other,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And you have, you might have 5 seconds to get someone's attention. It's probably less. So, keeping it short and sweet and getting to the point is crucial.
That's
So
interesting.
that's the best starting point. I call them profile videos. I've kind of done a hybrid one for Vintage Builders. I did one for Wade.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on Nick since the day I met him. We've been working on his for a long time. I'll probably never see the light of day, but
How long? What kind of a runtime should you see on a video like that?
a minute probably. I used to say 2 minutes,
Interesting.
2.5 minutes, but I think a minute.
Is
You say if you
so
can't say
fascinating.
what you need to say in a minute, you need to redefine your message, I guess.
That's interesting. Because I would have when I got on Instagram, I was the 1 minute video thing seemed like, well, it's like nothing that important really could be said there. And I, oops, there you're back now.
Oops, sorry.
And I do that every day. Every time I do this, I end up looking out the window here at some point. But anyway, so I felt like it was a little bit too short. But over time, as I've been on there and seen more and more guys doing these profile videos or even just a specific project video, you get to the end of that minute and you realize, oh wow, I kind of know everything I need to know about that. Like,
Yeah.
he might have a link to a more in-depth thing on YouTube, but I'd have to be really interested to get there. Like Instagram usually satisfies everything I need to know about that project.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say next. Having that minute that really encapsulates the key message, and then you can have a video that's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and really get into more detail for someone that's really interested. And that video could live on your website, so then they're going to travel maybe over to your portfolio or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to hit Johnny's question about how much. He's basically just asking you how much money you have, but he has how much money you've invested in your equipment. It seems like something to ask somebody on live on the internet.
I will say it's quite a bit. My computer is probably in the 10K range, and the other gear I've accumulated over years. But that's probably in the same neighborhood. And I'm always adding stuff to the mix.
Yeah. That's wild. And I think what's most incredible to me is the fact that you actually know how to use most of it, because
Right.
I can't find my way around my wife's Canon very easily. And I've spent hours on YouTube watching stuff. I cannot get to the end of that camera. So
And
that's
that's what I say to, I'm totally for people doing stuff on their own. Is if you have the time and the money to spend on gear, go for it.
mhm.
I've been in Premiere Pro as the editing software I use. I've been using that basically every day since 2011. So, I've got some time in there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's wild. So I recently got Premiere Pro because I felt like I'd kind of got to the end of iMovie and um, what I could do there, and it it is actually a lot more intuitive than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to get in there and just be lost, but I figured out most of the stuff, and I've watched a ton of YouTube videos to get there, but it didn't take more than a couple of video edits to get to at least where I was in iMovie. And if there was some certain look I was going for, or some certain crop or whatever, I could always just find a YouTube video on how to get there. So you're right, it is totally doable to do on your own,
yeah,
but it's hours late at night for me to to
right.
actually get there,
Yeah,
and the thing that suffers there is that you can just not get stuff done. Then you'll have 3 hours of footage sitting there that you work on for a year, and then it just
yeah,
goes away. So
yeah. That's what happens with me when I try to do something with my website. Something that takes someone 2 minutes takes me 2 hours, and it's like, all right, I'm out of my depth. So,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. um, so well, Wade wants you to tell about the day that you lost the drone in the ocean.
oh man, I did. I almost lost my drone. My first shoot with Wade. Super windy day, and I have the Mavic Pro,
Hmm.
which is a very small drone and not very wind capable. And strong gust just took it out and kept going and going. And thankfully, somehow we got a break in the wind and got it back in. But I was really thinking I was going to be gone. So,
That's gotta suck just to see that
but
disappear on the horizon.
at the end of the day, I mean, it was going to crash in the ocean, and it's not going to hurt anybody. So whatever.
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
What kind of range do you have on with that drone?
that one's pretty good. I think you'd probably go 2,500 feet away.
Like,
I don't
that's
know. I don't go too crazy, but it's hard to see. I used to have the Phantom Pro, which was a lot easier to see. It's bigger.
hmm.
This one's just so small, I lose it. But um, yeah, they have pretty good range. I don't know the exact feet. I don't know the exact.
Yeah, yeah, but it's not a couple hundred feet anyway. Like you
No,
could anything that any car is doing, it's going to easily easily take care of it.
it's at least 2,000. You can go 400 vertical, 400 straight up, and at least I think it's 2,000 away at least.
That's
So
pretty awesome.
yeah,
And does that just link? I'm going to start getting. You're going to see how ignorant I am about drones, but that's just going to link your phone directly to the controller, and you can kind of see your
yep,
shot on the screen.
yep.
That,
You can use your
how most of them work, right?
yeah, you can use your tablet, or I have an old phone that I use so I don't kill my normal phone battery. But I
Hmm.
have yeah, phone, tablet, it hooks right up.
Huh,
It's
that's pretty
it's it's gotten better even over the last couple of years. It's pretty good.
huh, cool. So if you had, I'm going to get myself flooring here. If you had to do a 5 second video, um, YouTube parole as style, what would you do? What would be your approach? How would you capture someone's attention in 5 seconds? So,
5 seconds. Start with the most interesting shot you took. You know, if it's if it's an aerial of the whole scene of the house being built, if it's a really cool time lapse of the project, something that's really going to draw someone in, like, oh shit, that's kind of cool,
mhm,
and to keep them there. The time lapses are really good way to do that. And drone, those are two big ones.
Yeah.
John, go to Johnny's page, one we did a couple weeks ago. He's got an interesting 5-second intro.
Is that the one with the boot?
Yeah, the boot. Yeah, that shot's a little. Yeah, that shot's in there, but.
Yeah. I think I don't remember. That was my first impression of that video. Actually, I think was the boot. I don't remember if it was the first opening shot, but
no, check. That was I think that's the still frame he used or something.
Oh, maybe
the opening shot is.
I'll have to check it out.
I think it's an intention grab. That was his idea too. So that's Johnny. Credit that to Johnny.
And vintage Johnny's saying.
Wade's
saying 2 miles.
My comments are frozen, so I can't see this.
Oh, okay. Well, Wade, to catch you up, Wade said he thought he was writing a check for $2,000.
No.
and
Even if I lost it, I wouldn't have.
Just bill the contractor. So he said it's 2 miles in the Mavic Pro. That's what Wade said.
Yeah, I'm sure it could, but I can't see 2 miles.
Yeah.
I'd lose it. I don't know.
Yeah. So that kind of touched on most of the stuff. Like I said, I wanted to try to start keeping these a little bit shorter. So if you've got any, I think the parting question I would have, I always like to ask is, if there's anybody 2 years ago or 4 years ago, or whenever you were kind of getting started, anybody that's wanting to get into what you do, what would your advice be to yourself? Pick a day, 2 to 4 or whatever, whenever you were hovering on the edge.
Yeah.
What would you say?
My advice would be, stay confident in yourself. I mentioned earlier I had a year hiatus from Puffin Media, and I was playing not to lose. I'd worked so hard to get to a certain point, and I kind of had a little dip, and I thought I was free falling. So I got a full-time job offer, and I took it. Mm-hmm. Instead, if I'd just waited 2 more months, a couple of very large jobs would come down the pipe, and Puffin Media would be totally different today if I'd just waited. Mm-hmm. So, stay confident in yourself.
I would, to follow that up, I would picture that's pretty tough, especially in what you're doing, because it's so creative. That's a difference between, I think, us contractors, where we would do work within a pretty set, some set parameters. I mean, there might be some fancy designs or something you might get into, or some new staircase style or whatever, but it's pretty structured, straightforward. Whereas, we can see at the end of the job, yes, everybody knows this is a good job. Whereas what you're doing is so creative, at the end of the day, like it's do people actually, glom onto it and say, yes, this is great? Or it's got to take a ton of confidence in your work and yourself, and without a whole lot of other people's buy-in at first. I'm sure that comes over time, but.
Yeah, and video is it's kind of I don't want to say luxury, but it's not a must-have. It's not critical to construction people's workflows. I can argue that it should be considered critical, especially if you want to show off. Yeah. But, if things get tight, guess what's going first? There's no big mystery there. But, my thing is just realizing it's always going to be, ebb and flow and up and down, and just stay the course.
Yeah. Doug, thanks. It's been fun.
Hey, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. One of these days, I threaten this in every video, but one of these days I'm going to end up over in Boston, and I'm going to try to track down everybody and say hi. So,
cool, man.
Till then, I'm going to keep enjoying your work.
All right, great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you later.
I'll get it turned off here eventually, I promise.